Ed will grab you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ed will grab somebody from the AV.
All right, man, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think I'll figure it out.
You can all take your seats. It's about ready to go. It's my pleasure to call to order the 123rd meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission on June 10th, 10 o'clock at the Mass Mutual Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. I want to make a few introductory remarks before we get started, and I think some of the other commissioners may also have some remarks. This is one of the penultimate weeks of the process that we've been involved in. We set out at the beginning, almost from the very first month, to commit ourselves to a process of licensing expanded gaming facilities in Massachusetts in a manner that would be perceived by the public as having been participatory, transparent, and fair. To that end, we've held 123 public meetings. That comes to something like 750 hours of public meetings streamed live on the web and available to the public both live and in our archives. That comes to almost more than 4 months of public meetings in the last 2.5 years. 4 months of public meetings in the last 2.5 years. We've held many other public meetings and made presentations to groups in all parts of the Commonwealth. We've had 8, I believe, educational forums. We've had dozens, probably by now hundreds of media appearances. We've received thousands of letters and emails from concerned citizens, all of which have been parsed and read by all of us. The culmination of all this process for Western Mass has been a Category 1 application process that began with 5 applicants and has now been winnowed down to 1. Mayor Sarno and the City of Springfield did an impressive job in holding their own competitive process, finally selecting MGM as its finalist. Other communities like Holyoke, West Springfield, and Palmer exercised their right to deny applicants access to their communities. So now there is one. The final MGM application was broken into 5 different categories of evaluation: finance, mitigation, site and building design, economic development, and a general overview section. Each of the 5 commissioners has taken on one of those 5 evaluation categories. Each of the commissioners put together teams of consultants and advisors to work with them over fully 6 months to evaluate the thousands of pages of the application and ultimately to rate the application. We knew when we started this process that there would be winners and losers, not just among gaming companies, but also among communities. Some pro-gambling, some anti. Some will win because there is a license awarded nearby. Some will win because there's not a license awarded nearby. But overall, I would like to comment, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for the other commissioners, that this has been a remarkable opportunity for us to meet with quality people from across the Commonwealth. The applicants and their multitudes of lawyers, the host and surrounding communities and their public officials, and a vast number of interested citizens, each and every one doing their job as they saw fit in the advance of making the best of this important law. Commissioner Stebbins makes a point often when he speaks about how uniquely we treat this industry. If any other industry came to Massachusetts, such as the Western Massachusetts applicant, and said, we want to invest a minimum of $500 million, we want to create something like 2,500 permanent jobs, and we want to create associated economic development throughout the region, we would be on our hands and knees, passing out tax breaks and applauding. This industry we put through an incredibly rigorous process of poking and prodding, background checking, skepticism, and referenda, all appropriately so, given the nature of the business. But it does remind us how differently we treat this industry than we treat any other industry that we deal with. It's the right way to do it because of the nature of the industry and its history and so forth. But I do think it's important to appreciate just how different that is, as Commissioner Stebbins points out so often. One other piece of background. The commissioners are aware that there's been discussion by MGM Springfield that they may be reluctant to give the Commonwealth an $85 million non-refundable deposit with the possibility of a repeal of the expanded gaming law on the horizon. That discussion definitely puts the cart before the horse. The issue before us today is whether to award the Category 1 license in Western Mass to MGM Springfield, and if so, with what conditions attached. The Commission has never discussed what we will do if a company refuses to accept a license award. If that happens, we will deal with it at the time. We'll talk more about the process in a few minutes, but I just want to say that from the Commission standpoint, as we go through this evaluation process between now and hopefully the end of the day on Friday, we will try to reach a unanimous consensus on whether we can make a license award, and if so, with what conditions. But we may not be unanimous, and a split vote in no way alters the dispositiveness, nor the importance, nor the clarity of the decision. If we have different opinions, then majority vote will determine the outcome. We've said from the outcome that we are committed to a participatory, transparent, and fair process. And I, for one, hope very much that by the end of this week, that the participants in the bidding process, the communities involved, and the people of Massachusetts will believe that we have met that standard. So let us begin. Any other commissioners have words before we begin?
Yeah, I don't have prepared remarks, but something that you alluded to, Mr. Chairman. A big thank you to all of the people that work for us in our staff, our consultants, the people who help us review these applications that are really lengthy, nuanced, complex, intricate. So that's, it's been a long process, but by leveraging all the skills and knowledge that we have at our disposal, it's great that it's coming to conclusion. And similarly, in order to review a big, complex application, it takes a lot of skill and time to prepare the application, and that also goes with. I also want to express thanks to the applicant, the last one remaining, I guess, but the one that endured during these last 2 years, which was a very competitive process up until now. So thank you for that effort. It costs a lot of money. We recognize it. It costs a lot of time and skills, and the Commission and the Commonwealth is better off by those efforts. Thank you.
I'd just like to say briefly, touch on one thing that you also touched on, Mr. Chairman, and that is the number of public meetings that we've held, but more importantly, the public input that we've gotten. For me, one of the most valuable parts of this process is that public input. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend one of the meetings we held here in Springfield, but I've watched the video of that, and I've participated in the others. There are some who passionately support the idea of a casino. There are some who passionately oppose that idea. There are some who passionately oppose us. But everybody is energized around this issue, and regardless of the side that they ultimately take, the best of the comments, be they pro-casino or con, have left me, and I think I can speak for the other commissioners, with new ideas and new ways of thinking about certain issues. And thus, regardless of whether we come out the same way the proponent of the ideas comes out, they have helped shape our thinking about how to proceed forward. I think that's an invaluable part of this process. The legislature set it up so that there would be that kind of public input. I know we all take it very seriously and are the beneficiaries of the energy and passion and thoughtfulness that goes into the best of the comments we hear. So I want to thank all of the members of the public who took the time either to write to us or to attend the public meeting or in some other way to communicate their views to us, regardless of what those views were.
I think just about everything has been said. I just want to thank everybody as well. Interesting process. A lot of work went into this, as I think you'll see today. I feel like we're very well prepared, but I want to thank all of our staff and consultants as well as the applicant and all of the other folks who participated in the process. It was good to hear from everybody, and we really did use all of that to form our opinions and make our evaluations. So thank you.
I also want to thank our staff, our consultants. When I walked into our Boston office a little over 2 years ago, there were 5 commissioners and 3 staff. So fortunately, happily, the tables kind of turned, and we brought in a lot of great people to help us with this process. This has been an exciting few months. We're considering and weighing a license application here in Western Mass. We've already issued a license for our one slots parlor, and shovels are in the ground and people are starting to erect steel. That's pretty exciting. That's what this legislation was all about, was about jobs and recovering revenue that we knew went outside the state. And it was only 2 years ago that all 5 of us are sworn in. To think of where we've come, what the process that really was driven heavily by a lot of local involvement, voter participation, giving communities a choice as to really whether they wanted to have a casino developed in their community. The statute has worked just the way we thought it would. But I appreciate the work of my colleagues. I appreciate all of our staff. I am somewhat thankful this morning for the shorter commute out of the 5 of us. But I'm looking forward to the deliberations over the next 2 days.
Thank you all. Let me describe the process a little bit, what we're going to go through this morning. There, as I said earlier, there are the 5 categories of the evaluation project. Each commissioner will present the category that they have been responsible for with their advisors and consultants. As they speak and as they finish speaking, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A by other commissioners with the commissioner who's presenting. This morning, we will start with site and building design with Commissioner McHugh. And during the rest of the day, we will deal with finance with Commissioner Zuniga and mitigation with Commissioner Cameron. That may take up the better part of the day. We expect, this is a little bit fluid, but we expect to start on Wednesday morning with having the applicant have an opportunity to point out anything that they think are factual incorrections. This is not an opportunity to alter the proposal or to debate the points, but if the applicant feels in good faith that any of the speakers have mischaracterized factual matters, the applicant will have an opportunity to correct the record. We will then have the economic development presentation from Commissioner Stebbins and the overview presentation by myself. And again, after that, the applicant will have an opportunity to correct the record if they think there are any factual errors. Throughout these discussions, we will be noting where, if anywhere, we think there are conditions that should be applied to the license within each of our 5 categories, and staff will be helping us keep track of potential conditions. At the end of those 5 presentations, which we think will be sometime around noon tomorrow, we will then start the deliberation process amongst the 5 of us. We will probably start out just kind of giving a general indication of our frame of mind, sort of predispositions, where we will not be taking a straw poll, but we will be just getting a sense of where we stand on both the issue of the award, but also on the issue of significant conditions. We will then continue to discuss it, and we hope that we will be able to come to an initial award go, no-go decision by the end of the day tomorrow. And from that point on, we will sort of play the schedule by ear. As you know, Thursday we will return to Boston for our regular meeting. There's time set aside to have carryover of this meeting if need be. We expect to be out here Friday morning at 10 o'clock for what we hope will be a final announcement, but we have plenty of time for carryover discussion scheduled for Friday. We even have time reserved in our publicly posted meeting notes for time on Monday if we should need that as well, but hopefully that won't be necessary. Anything else process-wise anybody wants to say? Then General Counsel Blue, do you want to just lay out any legal parameters that we need to pay attention to?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Since no process would be complete without a statement from the legal department, I am here this morning to deliver just a brief overview of some legal things to keep in mind. You have before you a document called a checklist for the issuance of a Category 1 gaming license. It is in essence the same checklist you used for the Category 2 license, revised for Category 1 purposes. The legal department put this together for you to use as a means to determine the findings that need to be made pursuant to Chapter 23K and the regulations. You will note that it has findings set up by section, and the goal is that by the time we are through the process, we will have made all of the required findings. I'd like to call your attention to the first page, which talks about the general requirements. The Commission may issue one Category 1 license in each region. Today, we are considering the grant of a license in Region B. If the Commission is not convinced that an applicant has met the eligibility criteria and provided convincing evidence, no Category 1 license shall be awarded. The Commission has full discretion as to whether or not to issue a license. Applicants have no legal right or privilege to a license. The period of the license is 15 years and begins when the Commission approves the opening of the gaming establishment for operation. The Commission's proceedings, which began with the submission of the RFA2 application, are administrative and legislative in nature. They are not adjudicatory. The applicant has been required to present all of the information required by the Commission. The RFA2 administrative proceedings have involved public hearings. They have not been adversarial in nature. They have involved no specific charges, legal rights, or privileges. They have provided no opportunity for cross-examination of witnesses under oath. They've afforded the opportunity for public comment, including unsworn statements and letters of support, opposition, or concern by persons advocating for or against the application. This proceeding will involve a final decision to grant or deny a gaming license, and that rests at all time within the discretion of the Commission. The Commission will ultimately grant or deny the application before it. In determining whether an applicant receives a gaming license, the Commission will evaluate and issue a statement of findings as to how the applicant proposes to advance the objectives in Chapter 23K. The form of the license will be a decisional form similar to that used for the issuance of the Category 2 license. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I believe we are ready to start, and I think we will go
What are we
ahead.
going to do with Karen?
Karen.
Get
Oh,
an
sorry.
update from Karen.
Yes, thank you. We're not ready to start. We are ready to call forward our Director of the Investigations and Enforcement Bureau for an update on the suitability background of our applicant, MGM Springfield.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. As a preliminary matter, as will be the normal course, when we have licensees, there will be additional qualifiers that come in and out of the license application and the granting of the license. And before you today, you have two additional qualifiers for your consideration. The first is Michael Mathis, who is here today to my right. He is the president of MGM Springfield. I believe he is a familiar face to all of you. In addition, the additional qualifier is Saeed Esfahani. He is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President of MGM Resorts International. The IEB conducted a suitability investigation of both qualifiers, which included verification and evaluation of employment history, criminal record, education, professional gaming licenses, directorships and stock holdings, civil litigation records, bankruptcy, property ownership, as well as financial suitability. That report for each of those qualifiers has been provided to you for your consideration. As you can see from the report, Mr. Esfahani is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President, had previously worked as Fiserv Inc., GES Exposition Services, ACI Worldwide, Distribution Management Systems, Inc., and First Data Corporation. And Mr. Mathis, before working in his present position at MGM, had been VP and General Counsel of Echelon Resorts, Corporate Counsel at the Venetian, and had also worked at several law firms in New Jersey, Ohio, and Las Vegas. For both Mr. Mathis and Mr. Esfahani, the background check did not reveal any derogatory information that would impact licensure, and therefore the IEB recommends a positive finding of suitability for both Mr. Mathis and Mr. Esfahani. And I believe that.
Do we need a vote
Yes.
on that?
Yes, yes, sir.
Director Wells? Then I would, unless you want to do something else.
Anybody have, were there any questions? We've all had the background checks. We've had an opportunity to review all the material provided by the IEB. Any other questions? Okay.
Then I would move that we accept and approve and adopt the report of Director Wells with respect to the qualifications of both of the new qualifiers.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? I certainly agreed with the IEB characterization. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Director Wells?
Yes.
These investigations were done in their entirety by internal staff, is that correct?
That's correct. So we have, we're moving away from using the consultants that were fortunate enough to have during the suitability investigations, and our in-house IEB State Police and civilian investigators conducted these investigations, and we'll be doing that going forward.
I think that's a great accomplishment.
There. Thank you. I also have an update for the Commission as to the suitability of the applicant. On December 9th, 2013, the Commission conducted a suitability hearing on the applicant Blue Tarp Redevelopment LLC. Blue Tarp is 99% owned by MGM Resorts International. After the full hearing, the applicant was found suitable by the Commission. Issues pertaining to individuals associated with Rolling Hills Estates Realty Trust were satisfied by the Commission by way of a $5,000 payment of costs by Mr. Callahan and the resignation of Mr. Barletta and Mr. Gillis from their positions as trustee and manager of the Realty Trust. Since the hearing, the IEB remains in contact with the applicant and other jurisdictions regarding any potential issues that may impact suitability. As was the case during the Phase 1 suitability investigation, the leadership at MGM remains accessible, cooperative, and forthcoming regarding any issues raised by the IEB. As with any potential licensee, as I said earlier, the expectation is that there will be personnel changes as time goes on and new qualifiers will be identified. For example, we were notified by MGM that Anton Nicodemus was promoted to Chief Operating Officer of MGM Resorts International Regional Operations. Additionally, modifications in policy and procedure will inevitably occur and demonstrate the development of the company. MGM has amended its compliance plan and now requires that at least one member of the compliance committee have regulatory experience outside of Nevada. Tom Oriyama now satisfies that requirement for MGM. Regulatory issues since the suitability hearing are generally consistent with an operation of MGM's size and scope. There are a couple issues worth noting for the Commission. In February of this year, the Nevada Gaming Control Board filed a complaint against MGM alleging denial of open access for plainclothes gaming agents at the high-limit realms at Aria. Notable, there was a similar incident in 2012 and some specific remedial steps had failed to be implemented. MGM has had discussions with the Nevada Gaming Control Board regarding refinement of its protocols regarding public's access to casinos. The Nevada Gaming Control Board and MGM are currently in process to attempt to work out a fine settlement for that event. An additional matter that garnered some press attention involved an undercover operation at the House of Blues Foundation Room at the Mandalay Bay Resort in Nevada. Employees of the Foundation Room were found to have distributed illegal narcotics and provided prostitutes. Notably, the House of Blues is a tenant of the MGM property. House of Blues utilized a third-party marketing company that acted as the nightclub hosts or promoters. Employees of that marketing firm and were implicated, as well as some lower-level House of Blues employees. As a result, managers, including the general manager of the House of Blues, were let go. There was a settlement agreement with the Nevada Gaming Control Board for a $500,000 fine against MGM, which was fully indemnified by the House of Blues. I reviewed the transcript of the hearing, and the Nevada Gaming Control Board commented on the following, which would be relevant for you today. Number one, they did note that MGM was a leader in the nightclub compliance policy area and indicated they did have a good track record, and that two, Mandalay Bay not only took the issue seriously, but genuinely wanted to make sure it didn't happen again, and three, that MGM had implemented remedial measures. MGM remains in good standing in the jurisdictions in which it is licensed. Additionally, MGM is applying for relicensure in New Jersey, and that suitability investigation is ongoing. MGM has also filed an application in Ontario. And the commissioners have any questions on the ongoing suitability, I'm here, and Mike Mathis is here as well.
Anybody else?
No.
Is that? That's all I have. Thank you.
So the net of your judgment is, even though with those issues in New Jersey in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
that they don't amount to enough to change your view of their status?
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, now I think we are ready to begin with Site and Building Design and Commissioner Jim McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and good morning to you, my colleagues. Good morning to members of the audience. I'm going to present the first of our 5 categories, discuss the first of our 5 categories, the site and building design component. If I could have the next slide, please. There are, as you've mentioned, Mr. Chairman, 5 components. I'm not going to pause over this. You've already outlined them. And I have the first of the 5. If we could go to the next slide. The building and site design section of the application contains 79 questions that each applicant was required to answer. And those 79 questions were grouped into 7 general categories, each of which dealt with a criterion that the Commission believed was important to analyze in determining the license questions that the Commission faced. Each of those deals with a different aspect of the building and site design, some with the physical appearance of it, some like Category 4 with sustainability, the green methodology, if you will, that the applicant uses to approach the operation of the building, Category 5, security, and we'll touch on each of those as we proceed. The principal sources that we used, that I used in conjunction with the consultants, to whom I'll turn in just a second for introductions, the principal sources were the contents of the application itself, site visits, virtual in the case of Detroit, which the applicant relied on to some extent, public comments, including comments facilitated by architects enlisted by the local chapters of the American Association of Architects, public input meetings, and other public comments that we received via mail or in some other fashion, all of which are available on the web. If we could have the next slide, please. I think there was one before that, was there not, Melissa? Did we go back one? There wasn't one before that, all right. Let's proceed to that one then. Sorry. Heavily, I relied on the advisory team that was instrumental in helping to analyze these materials. I individually don't have the background to do it by myself. None of us does. So we put together a terrific team of advisors who were very helpful in supplying advice. They're here today. Stan Elkerton, who's there on the phone, I don't know who's on the other end of the phone, but obviously he just got some good news. And he's here, and where's Stan? Oh, there he is. There's Stan. He was the leader of the group, and he's with City Point Partners. Ray Porfilio, who is here, is from Epstein Jocelyn Architects. He is an architect who provided invaluable advice on the architectural aspects of this. Rick Moore, who's here, provided invaluable advice on many of the engineering issues. Frank Tremontazzi, aided by Wing Wong, are both here, who are expert traffic engineers and provided us with very thoughtful advice dealing with traffic issues as they came up. Anne-Marie Lubenow is not here today. She couldn't be here, but she is an architect who has been through this kind of a process and this kind of an undertaking in Pittsburgh, is a highly qualified architect and was able to draw on some of her Pittsburgh experiences to help us see through things as well. And finally, Chip Pinkham, Arthur Pinkham from Epstein Jocelyn Architects, also aided Ray Porfilio, and Chip is not here today either. Nancy Stack, who is over here to my right, and Melissa Martinez, who is operating the computer this morning, coordinated all of this and helped invaluably in pulling it all together to present to you this morning. Now, Melissa, the next slide. Thank you. As a result of all of the inputs, we took each of those 7 categories, and you'll see this is a common thread, but since I go first, I'm simply outlining it. Compiled them ratings on 4 different, using 4 different criteria. Insufficient, which meant that the response failed to present a clear plan to address the topic. Essentially sufficient, the response provided sufficient information and substantively was sufficient to satisfy our concerns. Very good, the response was comprehensive and demonstrated credible experience and plans. And outstanding or excellent, the response was of uniformly high quality and in many cases exceeded our expectations. We rated each of the questions that way, then we rolled up the ratings for each of the criteria, and then finally we reached an overall evaluation, which we'll get to at the end. We compiled all of that, put it into a report now that's publicly available. Our report has a series of appendices that I highly commend to you because they are the narrative responses by each of the expert groups to the topics that they were assigned to think about. And I'll come back to this in a second, but that first one, a basis for evaluation of architectural design quality, was something into which the architects put a great deal of effort, and it's, I think, an excellent product in helping us take some of the subjectivity out of evaluation of architectural design. Obviously, you can't take it all out, but they have created some principles that I'll detail in a minute that help take some of the subjectivity out of it and are applicable to numerous different kinds of situations. Next slide, please, Melissa. We were able to take site visits to MGM Las Vegas. One member of the team was part of that site visit to Las Vegas. And as I said, we took a virtual site visit to MGM Detroit, relied on what we saw on both of those. So with that as background, let's dive in. And I first want to just take a general look at the setting in which all of this is occurring. This is a setting which the blue outlines here indicate proposed gaming facilities. The red indicates those that exist. None of this comes as a surprise, but I think at the outset it's helpful to take a look at this and remember the setting in which we occur, because it provides a backdrop for a number of the comments that all of us will make as we move forward. We have the Springfield area, of course, is what we're talking about today, the Boston area, which we'll turn to next. We have the Connecticut casinos that are in existence. We have the Rhode Island casinos that are in existence. We have a proposed casino in the area of Taunton, and a proposed possible Region C casino in this area, and a proposed casino that's been talked about, at least, on Martha's Vineyard. So that's the setting in which all of this occurs. And in that setting, we'll turn now to the first of the criteria. And this is a criterion which focuses on creativity and design and also overall concept excellence. We took all the questions, the 9 questions that fill that area, and grouped them in order of importance. And of that group, the first 4, overall theme, the relationship with surroundings, the color renderings, the schematic design, and proposed landscaping were at the heart of the proposal as I viewed it and as I was assisted by the consultants in viewing it. So it's those on which I'm primarily going to concentrate as we move forward. The next slide, please. This is a slide that many of you have seen before, but it is a good place to start because it presents most of the 4 major elements of the MGM Springfield proposal. The first element of that proposal is in this area, beginning over here and sweeping around to this side. We have in the back of course, the hotel, which has got two different components. This one sort of greenish blue in color, this one a bluer color, a 250-room hotel with about 50% planned to be reserved for casino guests. There are 55 residential units along Main Street planned for the facility and turning the corner at Howard Street. Beneath them will be retail areas, and in back of them, although this is a little hard to understand from this view, is a second-story outdoor plaza with a variety of different amenities located along the various components of that. We'll talk about that in more detail as we get deeper into this. This is Howard Street. This is an entrance to the casino down here. This is a sports bar right here. This is another entrance to the casino up here on the corner of State and Howard. And Howard really ends as a street in this area, which is a big open air plaza. The additional components of this first element are the banquet facilities, which are up here. This place, this square, outlines the main banquet facility. That's, as we'll see, a smaller sort of pre-banquet facility, and then there's another very small facility over in that direction. So that's the first element, the first basic element of this proposal. The second element I've begun to touch on already, and that's a pedestrian plaza that runs through here. We'll see in some other views many of the prominent features of it, but there's a farmer's market and ice skating rink over in this area. There is a revitalization of Da Vinci Park in this area, and that forms basically the second element of this proposal. The third element is an entertainment complex, which isn't available in this view. We'll see it in another one. It's on the other side of this building and consists of an upscale cinema and then some restaurants and a bowling facility below that. And finally, the fourth element of the proposal is a large parking garage on this side next to West Columbus Avenue, and the central plant that'll supply the heating, refrigeration, and other things that are needed to make the facility operate. So that's the overview. We'll deal with each of the components of that overview in more detail as we proceed over the next few minutes. First, though, let's look at the setting in which this occurs. Of course, we don't really need to know too much up on a screen about the setting. The setting's right in back of us, and we walk by it on the way in. But it helps to understand and remember that the setting is just south of a major intersection of two arteries, one running north and south and one east and west. And we'll talk about that throughout the day in a variety of different contexts. Next slide, please. More closely, it is in the middle of the city. It is in an area that was devastated by the 2011 hurricane, which swept across the river basically in that direction, taking down a number of buildings in this area as it went. And in fact, the name of the development company, Blue Tarp Development, stems from the fact that when they first arrived on the scene, many of the buildings in this area were recovering from that hurricane, tornado, and were draped with blue tarps visible from the taller buildings in the vicinity. The courthouse, some of the important buildings in the immediate vicinity are the Basketball Hall of Fame, which is right down here, the Superior Probate District and Housing Court are in this building right across the street. The Juvenile Court is right here. This label says the housing court is there, and that's where the court system says it is, but I've got to place a call this afternoon. The Mass Mutual Center with which there are operating agreements is right here, or right across the street. The museums are in this area. Symphony Hall and City Hall are right across the park, and there is a pedestrian walkway that connects this area back to that beautiful park just to the other side of this facility. Next slide, please. This is a closer look. Here again is the courthouse. Here's the juvenile court. Here is Court Square, the Symphony Hall, the City Hall, Mass Mutual Center, and the various components of the facility. Now, we'll also talk about these areas right here. These two buildings are not included in the proposed development. This building these two buildings down here are not proposed, and this building up here is not proposed. We'll talk about each of those in just a second. Next, please. We're beginning now to take a tour around the perimeter of the facility, and the rest of the focus on this section is going to be that tour around the perimeter. This is where we start. This is on Main Street, looking toward State Street at Howard Street. Howard Street is right here. This building is the Red Rose Pizzeria, which is an existing building. We look down toward State Street. This is the Mass Mutual office building, which is on the corner of State and Main Street. Did I say we look down Straight? I meant we look down Main to State. State is on this area here, and that building is on the corner of State and Main. So that's the way it looks now, and the next slide will show us what's proposed. From approximately the same view, this is how the concept is that it will look. Here again is the Red Rose Pizzeria. It remains. Here is the apartment buildings that I pointed out to you in that other view. Here's the retail on the first floor. Here's an entrance to the casino as you turn the corner into Howard Street. Here's more residential living spaces. Here, of course, is the hotel in the background. And as you go down Howard Street, you come into the pedestrian plaza that we saw from the aerial view a minute ago. This trolley is more than just a feature of this drawing to liven it up. This trolley, as we'll talk about in a second, and others will talk about as well, presents an element of the proposal that is designed to facilitate the connection between the proposal and other spots in the area, other attractions in the area, and that is part of the proposal to fund and get that off the ground and maintain that trolley. So it's more than just a decoration in this rendering. It's important to understand as we do this that these are renderings, they're not plans. And while this is the concept that's been with us since the beginning, and it's a concept that will form the heart of our evaluation as we proceed, inevitably there are elements of this that will change somewhat as we proceed. So it's important to understand what this is and what it is not, and that goes for the other renderings that we'll be looking at as we proceed. The next slide shows a look again down Main Street, but this time from the vicinity of Bliss Street. Bliss Street is right on the other side of this building. This is the Union Hotel, about which we've heard a great deal, properly heard a great deal, and about which I'll have more to say in a minute. Bliss Street goes in there. Once again, there is the building on the corner of Main Street and State Street, and that's the way this area looks now, or looked a few months ago. The snow's melted. This is the proposal, and Bliss Street disappears. Bliss Street was about right here. Bliss Street, under the proposal, would be blocked off. The residential units would be up here. This office building remains, and the retail remains along Main Street here. Next, please. Now we've turned the corner from Main Street. We were standing on Main Street during those last two views. In back of us on both of those views was Union Street. And now we've gone back to Union Street. We've come down Union Street toward the river, and we're looking from Union Street back across in the same direction as we were looking a minute ago. That is parallel to Main Street. And this is the Armory building. This is the outline of a portion of the Armory building that was destroyed during the tornado. This is a large rectangular building that's part of the Armory that's right in back of this part that was destroyed by the tornado. And then in back of this turreted building is another component of the Armory. It has two large turrets that you can see here. Very hard to see in this picture, but existing nonetheless are two smaller turrets that are here and on the other side. The proposal there, if we look at the next slide, is to take off that large rectangular piece of the building, take that down, and leave in place the two smaller turrets, that being the wall closest to Union Street, and the two large turrets there. Turn that into a restaurant, and then have adjacent to it, have a farmer's market area in the summertime, an ice skating rink in the wintertime, and then here, closer to Union Street, have a retail area in a building that retains the shape of the former portion of the Armory that was destroyed by the hurricane, by the tornado. This is a retail area here, retail here, and then in here is, in the summer, a farmer's market, and in the winter, an ice skating rink. This is the refurbished and restored Da Vinci Park, and in back of this, here, you can see on the second level where the cinema is proposed to be. On the Union Street end of that cinema facility is a retail area that is about that deep, and then the cinema begins there and moves forward, or moves back. And on the first floor of that are a series of restaurants, plus the proposed bowling facility. On the next slide, we look at another view of the same area, this time in the winter, and you can see that now the farmer's market has turned into an ice skating rink. This is Da Vinci Park. This is the refurbished Armory building that now is a restaurant. This is the plaza that's right at the end of what used to be Howard Street. This is the retail facility that fronts on this side on Howard Street. All right, the next slide, please. So that's a look at the components. These are elevations from various directions that help us see what the facility will look like as you walk along the streets. Actually, as you stand back and look at the streets in sort of with a wide vision lens. But let's just walk around the four corners of this facility and take a look at what we see. We start with Main Street. This is the corner of Main and State. Here is the hotel building in the back. This is the Mass Mutual office building, which will be refurbished and maintained as an office building. This is the retail area down to here. The retail area on the first floor. These areas here are the apartment units, the 55 apartment units that will be on top of the retail area. This is Howard Street. This is the entrance to that facility, that pedestrian walk around. This is now not part of the project. Right next to this would be the Red Rose Pizzeria would begin there and run along this area. There'd be retail down on this area here. We turn the corner and go down Union Street. This is where we turn the corner. And here we have a retail area here, the sort of low-lying retail area. We're looking all the way back to Howard Street right here. This is the apartment units. We're looking over the top of those buildings. Next to the retail area, we have an open parking lot, open parking facility that stretches from here down to here. This is the retail facility that's at Union Street, shaped like the old part of the Armory, and in back of it is the Armory that's now been turned into a restaurant. Here's the retail area, behind which is the cinema, and on the first floor, the restaurants and bowling facility. And here is the parking garage that stretches down the rest of Union Street to East Columbus Avenue. Actually, I think Currently, this last piece is not proposed to be there, but this was an earlier rendering, and I think this is gone from that plan. But in any event, most of the rest of the street is taken up by the garage. A building that is not part of the development is right in here. It's not shown in this rendering, but it would block if it remained a part of this view. But as I say, I think this piece is gone, so it really would look right through to the central plant, which would be right where about that dot is there. The next slide, we'll turn the corner and walk down East Columbus Avenue now. Here is the corner that we were just pointing to. We walk all the way down here. This is all the garage. The central heating and cooling facility is in this area. We're looking now through the other existing buildings. The existing buildings aren't here, to the entrance to the facility, to the hotel. This is the porte cochere, the place where the visitors are dropped off, and then the entrances to the garage are right here. The hotel towers are here on State Street. And then we turn the corner at State and Columbus, and this is the view of the garage that we get. It extends about halfway up State Street. Here's the hotel. Here's the entrance to the hotel from State Street. It is a preserved facade of the building that now exists at 73 State Street. So that facade is going to be preserved, and these are office buildings that will be preserved. There's a building here that will be demolished, but as we'll discuss in a minute, a portion of the first 3 floors, I believe, are going to be preserved here, and then here's the Mass Mutual office building that will be preserved and used as offices for the facility. The next slide, please. So those are the major elements and major views of this project. As I said, we grouped these first 5 questions together and assigned to them the most importance in our analysis. And of those, the design criteria that I mentioned at the beginning played an important role. Those criteria were these, that good design results from a program that is consistently of high quality, that reflects the quality of the region, that has public space and amenities, that serves and improves the immediate environment, that is compatible with planning visions for the area, that strengthens the connections with existing and future networks, and that captures and extends the qualities of the building type being a type that's supposed to be an office building, an entertainment building, and the like. And so those are the criteria on which we placed, on which I placed, with the help of the consultants, the primary emphasis. The next slide, please, shows that when matched against those criteria, this was a proposal that I rated as very good in that first and most important category. The next slide, please. And very good overall in this first criterion of creativity in design and overall concept excellence. And I'm not going to read all of that. I'm not going to read all of these as we move forward, but I just wanted to emphasize a couple of components of that. One, it's commendable that the proposed site respects the existing street edges, provides multiple entries for the casino. More about that in a minute. Fronts restaurants and shops on the main commercial spine, and includes public outdoor amenities. And then at the end of this analysis, I say that additionally the project incorporates some of the on-site historic building fabric, but also disturbs much of this historic fabric, for which further investigation is required. That investigation is in fact ongoing, and we have an update that we received Friday and yesterday that will be part of the discussion as we move forward. So that's the end of criterion 1. Is there anything that I should be adding to that piece? All right, thank you. Let's go then to criterion 2, which builds on criterion 1 and focuses on a gaming establishment of high caliber with quality amenities in partnership with local facilities. And again, in this category, there were a number of questions, but we grouped them in order of importance. And the most important, in my view, were the gaming amenities, the non-gaming amenities, the entertainment venues, the public spaces, the description of the hotel, and the quality of the amenities. And it's those things that I would like to talk about primarily in this section. This, again, is that rendering with which we started. We looked around the edges of that for the last few minutes. Now we're going to take the top off of it, and we're going to look down from a bird's eye view with the top off of all of this to see what's underneath. So let's take a look at the first slide. I want to spend a few minutes on this slide because there's a lot here and a lot to talk about. And I'm going to go around the periphery. We begin here on the corner of Main and State, and we saw from the outside what this looked like. This is the preserved Mass Mutual building. On this floor, it's the ground floor of that. On this floor, there is going to be cable TV and MGM offices. MGM offices here, proposed cable TV offices in here. This area is the casino. It's proposed to be 125,000 square feet, 100 table games, 25 poker tables, about 3,000 slots with about 3,700 total gaming positions. This is the high limit area in that gaming facility, that casino, and that occupies the entirety of this section of the ground floor. Proceeding along Main Street, we have, in this area, we have a restaurant and retail areas here and entrances to the apartment buildings upstairs on the second floor, beginning on the second floor, here and here. A casino entrance is right here at the corner of what is now Main and Howard. As we come around the corner, we have a retail area here. We have a coffee shop here, and then another entrance to the casino off of this pedestrian plaza right here. There is not entirely visible in this view because it's partially in here, a sports bar there, and then other facilities that we'll come back to in a second. Proceeding along Main Street, this is the Red Rose Pizzeria. This is the parking area behind the Red Rose. This is Da Vinci Park, the restored Da Vinci Park, and this will be part of the, this is not part of the proposal, as you'll recall. And then we have some retail here, which is. As we come down Union Street, we have an open parking area here, and then we have the retail area that fronts on Union Street, behind which is a radio and TV area, and then the open farmers market ice skating rink is right here, and that is adjacent to the restored Armory restaurant that's right here. Proceeding down Union Street, we again have retail here, and on this floor, we have food and beverage and retail all through here, and then we have the bowling area in here, and then other amenities back in that area adjacent to the casino. This then is the garage. It's 8 stories high. We're looking at the second story. There's one basement story, one story below this for buses and trucks and deliveries, but we're looking at the first floor here. These two buildings are not part of the development. They're on the corner of Columbus and Union. This is the main plant for the refrigeration, heating, and other services provided to the facility, and this is open area right here now. There was some talk, and I think it was only talk because I've been unable to find it in any document, of putting a gas station in here, but that has been abandoned, as I understand it, and never, I think never found its way into any print. In any event, it's not part of a proposal, and we'd have to look at that carefully if it became one, but I think that's academic. These two buildings over here, as I say, are not part of the proposal either. If we turn the corner and come up State Street, we come first to a small restaurant area here, If you drive in here, you come to the porte cochere, and this is the entrance to the hotel. Valet parking is right here. Entrances to garage then are right off of here. This is the hotel lobby. This is the facade of current 73 State Street that'll be preserved. And then here are food and beverage areas, and mainly food and beverage areas and some other things. So that's a basic view of what's on the first, planned to be on the first floor of this facility. Now, I said that we had listened to and received comments from a great number of individuals. And among those were the owners of the Red Rose, the Coal Vest Group that owns these buildings down here, the Courthouse Park Associates who own this building down here. We did not hear anything from the folks who are here. And we received comments within the last 3 or 4 weeks talking about specific issues that they had. Each of those, I think it's enormously helpful to say, each of those letters said that they were engaged in good discussions with MGM and thought that those matters were proceeding, but wanted us to let us know what their issues were. Air quality, noise, dust control, water supply, and stormwater management were a common thread for all three. All of those are dealt with in regulations. There are regulations for all of that, and I have no doubt that those regulations will be followed. There was concern from the Red Rose folks about the main entrance and the vehicular traffic to the main entrance, what they described as the main entrance to the casino here. The public transportation piece that I want to spend a minute on as we go further ought to moderate that. They had some other concerns that with deliveries and the like that I'm sure that they'll take up with and are taking up and are talking to MGM about. The Coal Vest had the Coal Vest and Pride, in this area, joined by Pride, which is the gas station right across the street, and we've heard from them, had some concerns about accessibility to Main Street via what used to be Howard Street. That's right at the heart of this proposal. There's simply no way to preserve that. But they also had some concerns about the entrance to the Riverfront Park down here. And I do want to talk about that in a minute. And I know that Commissioner Cameron has some thoughts about that when she gets to her mitigation piece as well. So we'll talk about that in a second. The owners of the Courthouse Park Associates were concerned about a number of things, including traffic through their property from this garage to the courthouse, which is right here. And this parking is going to be made available free of charge to anyone who wants to use it. And they're concerned that courthouse traffic would come through their property. That can be dealt with, it seems to me, by wayfinding and other kinds of things. But it's also important to remember that there are a lot of moving pieces here, and a lot of things are going on. And one of the things that's going on is a bill that Senator Canderas introduced in the Senate. That's where senators introduce bills. And has now been reported favorably out of the Senate and sent to the House is pending in the Ways and Means Committee. And that calls for a group composed of DCAM, the Division of Capital Asset Management, the Chief Justice of the Trial Court, the Court Administrator, the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of A&F, and state senators and representatives from Springfield to get together, use advisors, create a report about the Hampden County Courthouse complex, about this courthouse building, and talk about in the report such things as the impact of reconstruction on the interstate, of the reconstruction of Interstate 91 on the complex, the fair market value of the complex, the feasibility of constructing a courthouse elsewhere, and a variety of other things, and to do so by August 15th of this year. So I mention that simply to say that I think that things are fluid in this area, will remain fluid in this area, and undoubtedly will be affected one way or another by the construction that goes on in ways that we can't exactly foretell right now, and some of these problems, no doubt, will disappear as, or be modulated as a consequence. So that's the first floor. Let's turn to the next slide now for the second floor, which won't occupy quite as much time because there's not as much there. But what is there is interesting and worthy of note. This building will provide, this is the building on the corner of 70, the corner of State Street and Main Street. It remains, provides office space, some of which will be used by MGM. These are the apartments that are above the retail area. This whole area now is that second floor plaza that's outside the apartments and that's outside the banquet facilities. This is the main banquet facility. This is the pre-banquet facility. This is the smaller banquet facility, really a meeting room, I guess, that I mentioned to you.
How do you access that from the old Howard Street, or do you?
You'd have to go into the casino and go up, or go into the hotel and go up. There's no exterior entrance, I think, to that plaza.
Or from the parking structure.
Or from the parking structure, that's right. But there's no way you can get directly from here to here. You have to go through into the building and then out again. So that is not the kind of easy pedestrian access that's here, but it is one that services all the banquet facilities, the apartments, and as well the spa. This is a spa area, workout area here. This is a pool area here. I suspect there won't be many people in the pool in the winter, but it is available in the summer and is associated with the spa and workout area here. And then the garage is here, and then the cinema. This is the second floor above the restaurants and the bowling area. This is the cinema area here. All right. The next slide, please. Now, these are renderings, again, of the interior. This is part of the lobby. This is part of the casino. This is another part of the casino. This is an area where the food and beverage, these are highly stylized, I think it's fair to say, renderings of the kinds of amenities and the kinds of look and feel that the interior is proposed to have. Again, these are renderings, they're not plans, and I think are designed to convey what is proposed in terms of mood and rather than actual diagrams of what will exist. Next slide, please. These are more closely attached to what is proposed to exist. This is the sports bar that is at one corner of the pedestrian walkway, a pedestrian plaza, and the entrance to the casino, just on the riverside of the entrance to the casino. This is the sports bar that's proposed, or the type of sports bar that's proposed. This is a restaurant that's proposed. It exists here in Springfield now, as well as in East Longmeadow, a very popular restaurant. And if you go to the website, you'll get hungry. And they propose to incorporate that in the complex. This is a food market, emporium market area, which, according to the proposals in the application, will invite a number of different food vendors in with various different food offerings, and will be a place where locals can come and others come and set up shop. And this is a high-end Italian steakhouse that's proposed with a celebrity chef, and is one of a number of restaurants, but one of the high-end restaurants that the proposal will include. Now, So that's what's proposed on the interior of those buildings we looked at from the exterior. I want to turn now back to the exterior and take a look at the historic buildings and the status of the historic buildings, because this is an area in the downtown that does contain a number of historic buildings, and there has been a great deal of attention properly devoted to how they fit into or don't fit into this proposal. I want to spend just a minute on this map outlining where they are. This, number one, is the United Electric Building, the facade of which, 73 State Street, the facade of which is going to be preserved. This is the Mass Mutual office building that's going to be preserved and turned into an office building, maintained as an office building. This is the Estonia theater block, which has a facade and an interior of historic significance. This is the Union Hotel, about which there has been a great deal of concern voiced. This is the YWCA building that is there now and has a facade that is modeled on a 17th century building in Surrey, England. It was built by one of the region's most famous architects, a man by the name of Eugene Gardner, in 1907, and has attracted a great deal of attention. The Union Hotel, which is right here on the corner of Bliss and Main Street, is the fourth oldest building in Springfield and one of the few Italianate buildings in the region. President Polk and his Secretary of State, James Buchanan, stayed there, and that was built, I believe, in the 1840s and has, as I say, attracted a significant amount of attention and concern. This is the Howard Street School. That was devastated by the tornado. You can drive by it now, and it's still covered with blue tarp, and I believe it's been condemned. This is the French Congregational Church, and this, number 4, is the WCA boarding house. This is the Armory building. So that's the location of the buildings that are in one way or another registered either in the National Register, the State Register, or the Inventory of Historic and Archaeological Assets of the Commonwealth. Let's turn to the next slide briefly. That's a picture of the facades of each of those buildings. This is the 73 State Street building. This is the Armory building. Next to it is the French Church. And to the right of that is the WCA building. Below that is the building on the corner of Main and State. To the right of that is the Estonia theater block. There's the YWCA with this richly ornate facade. Below that is the Howard Street School, and there is the Union Hotel. Next slide, please. Now, from the outset, as matters stood last Thursday, and certainly at the time this presentation was initially prepared, there had been agreement on an undertaking, I should say, to do several things. One is to relocate the French church from about right here, that's where it exists today, and move it across the street so it's on the corner of Union, on that corner of Union and Main, and turn it into the daycare center for the facility. There are some other interesting things about that I'll come back to in a second. The other agreement was to maintain and rehab that portion of the Armory and to maintain and rehab the office building on the corner of State and Union, State and Main. And then to preserve the facade on the front of 73 State Street and use it as the entrance to the hotel from State Street. So that's the way we understood matters to stand until very recently. The next slide, please. This is in your book, and this is the best I can do with this. All right. This is an update. MGM met with the Mass Historical, with the historic folks on Friday, and presented a revised plan to them. And then on yesterday afternoon, it's the Springfield Historic Commission, I should say, responded to the proposal, and this will update where matters stand at the moment. There is an agreement, as I understand it, although there are still some details to be worked out. There's some agreement that the Mass Mutual building will remain and be rehabilitated. There's agreement that the United Electric building, the 73 State Street building, will be demolished, but that the facade will be preserved, and the dome, there's a beautiful dome just inside the entrance of that, will either be preserved and used somewhere in the rest of the building, or it will be replicated, and the lobby features will be replicated elsewhere in the facility. There is an agreement that this building, which is just to the Main Street side of the State Street of the United Electric building, will be demolished. It's this one right here, and that its features will be preserved in whatever replaces it. The next building up is an office building at 95 State Street, and there's an agreement that it will be demolished, but that the first 3 stories will be maintained. That's a high-rise building with 3 stories in the front of it, and the high-rise part is in the back. The Mass Mutual building, as I said, there's always been an agreement that that would stay. Insofar as the WCA boarding house is concerned, that's this building down here, there's an agreement that that will be demolished. There's an agreement that with respect to the Edsonia theater block right here, that it will be demolished, but that there will be facing, some of the facing elements will be preserved along Main Street, even though the building is demolished. The look and feel of the current building will be preserved by whatever replaces it. The French Congregational Church, of course, we've touched on, that will be moved across the street. The apartment building at Howard Street right here, there's an agreement that that will be demolished, or maybe it's been demolished already. In any event, there's no problem with its disappearance. And the Howard Street School will be demolished as well. That leaves in play the Union Hotel, the YWCA, and the State Armory. Insofar as the Union Hotel is concerned, the Springfield Historic Commission would like more of the facade along Bliss Street to be preserved, and would like a little indentation along here to indicate where Bliss Street was. So that's still a work in progress. Insofar as the YWCA is concerned, it's right here, and they would like it to be preserved in the facade to be preserved in its current location, and if not, then to be moved back against the proposed entrance wall for the casino. And finally, with respect to the State Armory, they would like that rectangular building in back of the turreted portion to be preserved, which would have the effect of shrinking the area available for either the farmers market or the ice skating rink. Those are works in progress. That's where they are now. There's a been a significant amount of progress since this discussion started, and it looks like that discussion is moving in the right place, in the right direction. The process is for the draft EIR to identify the historic resources. That's been done. For the Historic Commission to require consultation, feasibility studies, consultation with the local and state commissions, and then ultimately the process works its way through. It's well underway. We did not, the consultants did not, and I agree with the consultants, think that a condition by us superimposed on this highly developed interactive process would be helpful to the outcome. And so we do not have a condition to recommend there, and are content and encouraged by the, content with and encouraged by the progress that's been made, and think that it will continue to proceed. Next slide, please. So there, again, is the, you can read that. I'm not going to stop and look at those aggregations of various conditions, various questions. Let's proceed to the next slide. I rated this proposal as well very good in almost all of the categories, and sufficient to very good in the one other one. I think it's worthwhile noting that, as the next slide says, the proposal is of an urban casino with quality levels of service, amenities, and design that are modeled in some cases after those of the MGM Detroit, but in any event are overall very good for the reasons that I hope are evident from the display that was just presented. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I'm finished with that.
I thought we'd take a quick break before your next criteria.
Okay. Let me first of all ask if there's anything that I should add to what I've just said. All right. Good. So we'll take a break then. All right.
Just a 5-minute break. We'll be back. Thank you. All right, we are ready to reconvene. Commissioner McHugh on building and site design.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move now from a focus on the buildings and the amenities and their interconnection with the environment to the overall structure and facilities integration with the facility with the immediate environment. And I'd like in that regard to focus on four separate issues: traffic and parking, an important construction issue, pedestrian access to the casino and the river, and public transportation. I'm going to go fairly quickly through this section because this is an area where building and site design considerations overlap significantly with mitigation, and I know Commissioner Cameron's got some thoughtful, as always, things to say about that. So I'm going to focus on just the things that are in the immediate surroundings. I know that Commissioner Cameron will amplify the broader picture. That, again, is simply a look at where we're located, obviously at the near two main routes, one north-south, one east-west. The next slide, please. That means that I-91 moves north and south right by the project site, and as that slide indicates, 6B, exit 6B northbound and exit 6B southbound offer quick and easy access to the site. So from an interstate carriage standpoint, the facility is well sited. Next slide, please. Internally, the access to and egress from the parking garage is quite easy. Off of State Street, one comes into the parking garage at either of these two locations, and one exits from the parking garage in the same places. There's enough width there to go both in and out, and it'll, I'm sure, be signalized and so that people can do it. The same is true on Union Street, although the entrance is on the Main Street side of the facility, and the exit is down here, so you don't have in and out in the same place over there the way you do on the State Street side. And then down Union Street and on to the north, down Union Street and on to the south, and the same is true for the northbound side on the State Street side as well. Next slide, please. We talked about this before. This is a close-up of it. This is the State Street side. Here's the hotels. Here's the Porte Cochere. People who want to drop off and get valet parking service come up, turn into the Porte Cochere area, drop off the car or drop off passengers, and drive into the garage right here, or turn it over to the valet who will drive it into the garage. This is one entrance to the garage. This is the other entrance to the garage. As I said, this piece, we looked at it from another view, is no longer part of the proposal, so the garage ends right there, and this entrance exit is not a part of what is planned now. Next slide, please. Patron and employee automobile access. This is a busy diagram, but it basically indicates the flow from I-91 south and into the facility, either via State Street or via, this would not be from I-91, this would be from West Columbus Avenue, up Main Street. This would be from I-91 up Union Street, and then when you come out, either going southbound or going northbound up there, easy access. And then from that end, coming down State Street into the Porte Cochere and the garage. So the overall point of that slide is that the access and egress is well suited to the facilities, and the traffic studies that have been done and analyzed by our consultants indicate that this area can handle the traffic load. I know Commissioner Cameron will have more to say about that. Next slide, please. This simply illustrates the delivery and bus traffic. Deliveries come in here. You'll recall when we looked at this ground floor area, I said there was an area below. There is an area below for buses, for deliveries, so that doesn't mix with the normal patron traffic on the first floor. And the buses and other delivery vehicles go in and go down, and then come back out and either go north and south the same way others do. The next slide, please. This shows the existing parking in the area. Now, some of this is going to be compromised temporarily with the I-91 viaduct reconstruction project. Others will be compromised by the construction process, and others will remain during that period. But the point of this is that this is the existing parking now. When this project is finished, there will be far more parking right in here, and some of this parking at least will be restored. Next slide, please. The parking issue has been examined. The existing demand in the immediate area is about 800 spaces, 785. MGM's demand is 2,707, and so there are 3,800 parking spaces in that garage proposed. And I think the plan is, the plan is to build the garage first so that there will be parking restored as soon as possible to alleviate the disruption. It's important to understand that this number, although one can criticize, one can think about whether that's really going to satisfy the demand if there's free parking in the garage for everybody, plus the casino demand, whether this number is adequate. That number is the reflection of an agreement between the city and MGM that's embodied in the host community agreement. They settled on a number That's in the host community agreement, and this is approximately what that number is. So that number is something that was negotiated between the city and MGM, and that's in part at least where it came from. Next slide, please. Next. Thanks. I'm going to slide right by this because I know Commissioner Cameron is going to talk about it. This is the I-91 viaduct reconstruction area, and it's going to be going on simultaneously with construction on this site. That has to be attended to. Next slide, please. Pedestrian traffic is something that significant attention has been devoted to. There is going to be some signal improvements here. There are going to be signal improvements elsewhere. And there is a real effort to make this a pedestrian-friendly place, as is important for some facility that's in the heart of an urban area. Mr. Cameron will go into more detail perhaps about that, but I think this slide illustrates one very important facet of this proposal, and that is each of these stars represents an entrance to the casino, and there are 9 of those stars, and this is a place where you can get in or get out of the casino. In addition to those 9 entrance exits, there are another 8 entrances to dining or retail facilities from the street that will allow you to move into the casino, but don't require you to. So you don't have to go into the casino to get to those dining and retail facilities. So that makes a total of 17 entrances or exits to the casino, and 8 of which allow people to come in from the outside and not visit the casino itself. And then there are 2 more entrances up here to the apartment buildings, which then allow you to get onto this second floor promenade and down into the casino. So those are 2 more ways to get into the casino, but 2 more entrances that don't require you to go into the casino. So there's a total of 19 entrances and exits to the casino and to retail facilities. And a number of them don't require you to deal with the casino at all. That is, I think, unique to this facility. I'm not sure there are any others that we have seen or studied that have that many ways to get in and out. The old paradigm was to have 1 or 2 that allowed you into the casino, and then you went from inside to the retail and the dining and everything else. But this is designed to allow integration with the community and the surrounding areas. Next slide, please. This is a slide that depicts the relationship between the casino facility, the MGM facility, and the waterfront. MGM has committed $1 million to upgrade the waterfront park. I think there's another $1.3 million that the city and the state have committed to the northern part of the waterfront park, although maybe that overlaps. In any event, a significant amount of money and energy is being spent on upgrading this park with MGM's participation. It is difficult, though, as presently constructed, to get to the park. If you come down State Street, you can go through here, and there is there's a station right here, and then you can go through there to get to the park. There are no signals there. This is a view of it coming down State Street and going through. There are no signals here, and there are gates that can be closed, but if the gates are closed, they form a barrier that pedestrians can't open. So
How do you get across the highways, or is it underneath, like Union Street?
No, you go across the highways. There's signals. You go underneath I-91.
Okay, same
Right.
as Union Street. You go
Same as Union Street,
2
right.
places, okay.
You go underneath, but then once you get underneath, this is what you're facing right here, which is an unobstructed pathway through. In fact, that may even be a roadway. but there are no signals here for the pedestrians, and there are gates that can be opened or closed, but it's not, but once the gates are closed, they're closed. You can't get through. Down on this side, you come down Howard Street underneath I-91 again, and on the other side of Howard Street, the LA Sports facility is right here, and there is a crossover down here.
It's Union Street you're talking about.
What did I say?
Howard, yeah.
I'm sorry, Union, yeah. You come down Union underneath the I-91, and then LA Sports Fitness is down here, and then there's a crossover down here. But it is really hard to figure out, once you're under here, how you get to that crossover. There is no wayfinding down here now, and you have to actually get there before you can figure out how to get across it. So, and this intersection is a busy intersection. So there are some proposed upgrades there.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Commissioner, I just want to understand this. So if you're using the Union Street access to the river,
Right.
you have to walk across the West Columbus and East Columbus, then you're underneath I-91, then you're walking again across West Columbus, is that right?
Yes, you walk across East Columbus, then you walk across West Columbus, then you're on a little road that's right here,
Yep.
and then you
And then
come
you gotta
down
get
this
over the
road,
tracks.
but there's no real path down this road now. And then you get to this thing, and you either climb up, there's an elevator there, or you climb up, or you take the elevator up, come over, and come down.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So that, there are some improvements suggested for here. Commissioner Cameron has some detail about those. But my point is simply that this is an area that we're going to come back to with some recommendations, because it is highly likely that with all the energy being put into refurbishing, upgrading the park, there's going to be an interest in movement back and forth. So that's something that needs some attention. More about that in a second. Next slide now, please. This is a bus map. Again, it's a busy bus map. It's not intended to do anything other than show that the site is well situated to take advantage of public transportation. And I'm sure we'll be encouraging public transportation, though we do have a recommendation in that regard. But we've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy in various groups as we analyze this, thinking about vehicular traffic and how to handle that. But it's in the middle of an urban environment, and public transportation is something that is ideally utilized to get to and from this facility, and ought to be encouraged. Next slide, please. And MGM is proposing to do some of that. This is the bus route. I pointed out that trolley in one of the earlier renderings. Here's the trolley again. It may be the same trolley. But the trolley route is depicted on this slide, and it connects the various attractions, Union Station, the Basketball Hall of Fame, and various other attractions in the area, and is designed to connect the project with those facilities. It's a for-pay system, and MGM has committed to fund it and to operate it, and to use it to connect these various other facilities. To some extent, that will alleviate the problems with the pedestrian traffic, for example, down to the Basketball Hall of Fame and other places that have to go through these intersections. But the issues for the intersections, the pedestrian issues for the intersections remain. Next slide, please. So, in summary, the mitigation measures that have been discussed are listed here. Commissioner Cameron will talk some more about them. Some are in progress, some are proposed, some have not yet gotten to the planning stages. All are necessary in some degree, in my view, to deal with the traffic issues in the immediate vicinity of the casino. Next slide, please. Based on where they have gotten thus far in the planning, however, the criteria are all in at least satisfactory and if not better shape. And as the next slide will show, my overall rating is sufficient to very good for all of these compatibility issues. They've made a substantial effort to deal with the traffic flow. They've made substantial effort to deal with parking, and overall, the rating is very good. I should point out one thing that MGM has committed to, and that is to run shuttles between off-site parking lots and the downtown area during the courthouse and I-91 construction period. And that is, will be of enormous help. But it needs some careful attention to make sure that, particularly with courthouse traffic, the right people are on the right buses, and one doesn't have a toxic mix of, for example, defendants and witnesses on the same bus for what could be an uncomfortable ride. But I'm sure that that kind of planning will ensue as we go forward. Well, I'll stop there because I'm going to come back to that theme that they have addressed very well in just a minute. So that's the overall rating for that area. Is there anything I should add to that? Okay. Let's go on then to the next one, which is sustainable development. We shift now from operational, from things that touch the patrons of the casino to things that keep the facility operating. And some of this is a little technical, but let's try and deconstruct it. The environmental piece really focuses on something called LEED certification and certifiability. LEED is an acronym for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And it is a standard that's applied to all new buildings. It's a standard that's designed and created to allow developers flexibility in achieving a green environment, an energy conservation environment, and at the same time encouraging them to use as many energy-saving devices as are possible. Let's go to the next slide and we'll take a close look at it. To spur that creativity and flexibility, there are 7 categories of design characteristics that the LEED standard is intended to measure. And this is a nationwide standard. You find it in all buildings and all areas across the country. There are 4 levels of LEED certification: certifiable, silver, gold, and platinum. Our statute specifies that you should be certifiable at the gold level. And to be certified at any one of those levels, you have to get a number of points in these various categories: sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, and innovation and design. They all are essentially self-defining. Sustainable sites means such things as access to public transit, stormwater management, maintaining open spaces. Materials and resources includes reused and recycled materials. Indoor environmental quality means reducing the amount of volatile organic compounds that you're using, things that outgas toxic fluids, toxic gases, and the like. And so there's a number of points in this schedule that are assigned and available to each category, and then an applicant looks at its construction approach, figures out how many of these points, all of which are detailed in schedules, it can achieve and will achieve, how many it is likely to achieve or possible to achieve, and adds up its total score. And MGM has stated that it's likely to achieve 63 of these points. There are another 25 that are possible, and so it is bound and committed to meet the LEED gold standard in the fashion described in the materials.
Where is the cutoff for the platinum?
The cutoff for platinum is 80. 80 to 100 is platinum. And 80 to 100 is platinum. Next slide, please. And this is how they propose to do it. These are the 7 categories: sustainable design, sustainability. They propose to achieve 18 out of a possible 26. This is what the LEED category says is the maximum you can get in this category. They propose to achieve 18. They think they can. They've committed to doing that. They think another 6 are possible. So it's possible that they'll get 24 in that category. And one should understand that if they got 24, they picked up another 6 in this category, then they could lose another 6 over here someplace and still maintain the LEED gold, because this is an overall score, and there are various routes to get it. That's the beauty of this system. It allows flexibility. It also allows people to take advantage of changes that happen as the design is going forward. Inevitably, things crop up that mean that you can't go down a path you chose. That's okay, as long as you take another path to pick up the points that you lost when you ran into some kind of a wall.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
it's interesting that energy and atmosphere, their committed points is way lower. Just off the top of your head, do you know why? Why is that? What would be the big chunks in energy and atmosphere that they're not assigned?
I think renewables is probably the area there. I don't know. I don't have any.
I'm going to make an educated guess that,
But-
being a 24-hour operation, it's the most challenging. Many other buildings actually operate on something different,
Right.
and are able to attain something a lot more along the lines of the points here.
And there is, I think, there is also no commitment to using the lowest energy consuming slot machines and other devices. And so that may play a role in it as well. But overall, they've got the points that they need to qualify. All right, the next slide, please. Now, in addition to the LEED certification, there's a process known as commissioning, and they have undertaken to do commissioning in a variety of areas: the building envelope, the building system, and commissioning of ongoing operations. And that is a process that involves having outside or hiring people to come in and actually look at things like the building envelope, the things that surround the building, to make sure that it's tight, that you're not losing energy, you're not losing, you're not picking up energy through leaks, that you're not losing heat, and it is a rigorous process that does actual measurements of how the building is put together and how it's working. This is a process that's not required by our statute. It's a process that's designed to allow you not only to theoretically achieve certain goals, but to test and determine whether you actually have achieved those goals, and on an ongoing basis, to check and see if you are maintaining those goals over the building's operation. And this is a very important piece of energy efficiency. It's not required by the statute. It's something that you can do or not do. It has a potential for a high return on investment, but it is not something they're required to do, but they are doing, and it's entirely apart from the LEED process. Next slide, please. There are a number of statutory, the statute mentions a number of different criteria that we have to consider in looking at the overall energy efficiency. And this is how I've rated each of these criteria. I'm not going to go through all of them. This one, water conservation, is rated insufficient, not because the goals are insufficient. The goals are perfectly sufficient. In fact, they claim to be able to achieve 4 points, which is the maximum in the water conservation area in the LEED side. But there is nothing in the application that details how they're going to do it. So there is a documentation shortfall there that is led to that grade, not the certainty that their measures will be insufficient. But otherwise, everything is satisfactory, and overall, the LEED certification is very good, because the rest of the documentation shows that they can do what they say in their LEED claims they intend to do, and I'm confident with the advice of the consultants that they can, in fact, do it. Next slide, please. That is, again, a listing of why we've grouped the various things the way we have. The next slide will show the overall rating for the various groups. It's satisfactory to very good. And finally, the next slide shows the overall rating for that category. One thing that's interesting here, although it's a small part of the overall project, is that they are willing to explore a net zero building for the relocated church, which means that the energy, they're willing to look at measures that will create an environment in which the energy locally produced will offset and meet all the energy needs, so that they'll not need to have any external source of energy to run the building. It's a very small part of the overall project, I think 0.3%, but it's an interesting facet of the approach and a very interesting building. All right, next slide, please. I'm sorry, did I leave anything out? Okay. Next slide, please. Now we move on to security and monitoring, and for the last three criteria, I'm going to go very quickly and just in summary form. Basically, they have met at least sufficient, their scores in each of these were at least sufficient. In the security area, the blacked out area deals with the some specific plans that they have for security issues, and we don't, those would not be helpful for everybody to know about. One point to this that I want to make, it's all, as you can see, either very good or sufficient or very good. They will have a state-of-the-art security system in the central garage, involving surveillance, involving patrols, involving a variety of different alarms and sensors, and that is, again, an important consideration given the multiple constituents they're going to have for using that garage, and it meets some concerns that have been raised about that multiple constituency in a number of quarters. Next slide, please. So that's the overall rating. Again, you can read that for yourselves. It's sufficient to very good for security overall. Next slide is one that deals with permitting. The permitting process is ongoing. The experts in permitting, the experts on our team in permitting, say that they are well advanced in the process. In the next slide, we have summarized that. They've documented their efforts to comply with the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act requirements, which are extensive. The historic buildings are on a good track, although there is some concern, well, some watching needs to be done to make sure that it progresses, continues to progress smoothly. One very positive aspect of this is that the city has created a casino overlay district that allows a casino to be accommodated as of right. So unlike most environments where once you get past the MEPA, Mass Environmental Policy Act process, you are faced with zoning considerations, planning board considerations, and the like. That's all been essentially taken care of by the overlay district. There's still controls, but it's a lot easier than it is in some other environments. And that adds to the sufficient to very good designation. Next and the last criterion is other, and that basically deals with control over the site, description of the site, and the like. Suffice it to say that the control over the site is adequate and the description of the site is sufficient. If you put all those together, as we have here, and this is simply a slide that shows the overall scores or overall ratings in each of the criteria, along with the narrative that accompanied that rating, you ultimately arrive at an overall rating for the project, which I rank with the assistance and thought and input of the consultants as very good. And this one, I think I will read because it is the culmination of our efforts, and this narrative explains how we got there and how I got there and why. MGM Springfield makes a concerted and largely successful effort to integrate into the downtown through its programming, site planning, and exterior architectural design. The proposal will redevelop multiple city blocks damaged due to the 2011 tornado that ripped through the city. The proposed site is mostly characterized by underused buildings and open parking lots. The development will present a visually attractive venue of favorable proportion, including amenities that will draw individuals and families to enjoy a variety of non-gaming activities, provide lively and inviting open space, and create a project that works well with the Springfield city core. Further, it will preserve elements of some historical buildings on the site, including the 19th century armory and former Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance building. In addition, it will relocate, preserve, and reuse the old French Congregational Church. All of this is accomplished within a commitment by the applicant to obtain LEED Gold certification. Key to the applicant's approach is a commitment to energy efficiency. The project is well into the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act process, and no significant obstacles stand in the way of an opening in late 2016. If granted a license, the MGM Springfield Casino is anticipated to revitalize the urban core, energize adjacent businesses, add to the housing inventory, serve public wants and needs, and spawn new urban development that will continue to amplify the positive impacts of the project. All of this is accomplished with few detriments. Highway access is greatly facilitated by its proximity to the I-91 interchange, thus minimizing traffic impacts on downtown roadways. Reasonable measures funded by the applicant are proposed to mitigate traffic impacts, promote public transportation, and facilitate bicycle and pedestrian access. Demands on other public infrastructure, water, sewer, stormwater, fit well within existing capacity. The parenthesis, the consultants took a look at calculations that the applicant did, that MGM did provide for those issues, measured them against known capacity of the systems here in Springfield, and they all fit well within those systems. There is capacity there now and in place. Back to the text, the project utilizes and in fact relies on local amenities, including the Mass Mutual Center for entertainment and conference, proximate hotels and restaurants, and nearby visitor attractions to support its offerings. There are concerns that demand continued attention through the subsequent review and permitting processes. However, the disposition of a number of historical properties now slated for demolition, we've been through that, there's progress being made. Treatment of the 8-story parking garage, which presents an imposing utilitarian facade on some exposures. Security and neighborliness, especially with respect to the adjacent courthouse, shadows cast by the hotel tower, and construction impact on surrounding community and adjacent properties. The applicant must be encouraged to address and resolve these issues to the extent practicable. This proposal is given a rating of very good for criterion 4 for its urban design, excellence, and its transformative potential. As detailed in Appendix A, the execution of this ambitious concept will require careful attention during future phases of design and development. So that's our bottom line, my bottom line with respect to this. There are some conditions that I could briefly detail now, or, Mr. Chairman, at your pleasure.
Are there any questions or comments before we get to the conditions?
Just that it was very well done, easy to follow, can really visualize what this project will look like and feel like.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a good thing you have a background in city planning rather than something like the law, 'cause you really know this well.
I had the benefit of some truly terrific consultants, and I'm a good mouthpiece, I guess.
Well, let me, did you
No, go ahead.
If you can cut me off if these relate to conditions, I forget now whether, on the access to the water, do you have a condition?
We do.
Okay, so I'll wait till we get to that one. On the historic preservation stuff, I just think that the applicant deserves a lot of credit for really taking that. So they took it seriously from the beginning. I thought that, and I've said this before, that they started out by either repurposing or saving all or some of 4 buildings right from the very get-go, and have now been, I think, quite responsive. And I think that's really unusual in the world of development. To be as responsive as they've been on this is notable. For what it's worth, the idea of saving the back end of the armory and shrinking the outdoor public space looks to me like a trade-off that, from what little I know about it, would not be appealing. The only thing here, and I think this is probably unnecessary, but I don't think, you said you're not going to have any conditions on historic preservation,
Right.
Maybe this is inherent, but I don't think we'd want to go backwards. We wouldn't want to see slippage backwards from the commitments that have already been made. Whether that's a condition or not, I'm not quite sure how that would work. But
I think with, after consultation with our consultants, to a person, they're content with letting this play out. The backsliding is not, is up to the Historic District Commission. I mean, they have to get through this process with the Springfield Commission and the State Commission. And they have demonstrated a commitment to doing this.
So I'm getting nods. We got a letter at the end of May from a gathering of design professionals who live in the area, making some comments. Are you going to comment on those at all, particularly on, or could I pick a few out that I was interested in, or?
Sure, you could pick a few out, and you'll see. I was not going to comment on those. So.
Okay. Well, under general comments, it talks about the phasing issue and the possibility that it's unlike it says the entire project will be built at once, the tail end of the phasing schedule may never be built. That is really within our control, right? And
It is.
We have not, at this point, talked about permitting any phasing. We talked about opening at all at one time, but I guess in any event, that's within our control.
It is within our control, and that, I'm sure, is one of the things that will be worked out with Pink, who is our overseer, and I saw that, and it seemed to me that we certainly have sufficient control over that to deal with it.
I mean, it's more of an interesting challenge in this case because it's such a multi-dimensional project.
Right.
It's not just the standard hotel,
Right.
restaurant,
Right.
retail, and casino.
Yeah, the concern articulated there was if there isn't some commitment up front or some condition, then some pieces of this will never be built. They'll build the casino and they won't build anything else. I really think that, first of all, our general condition says you got to do what you said you were going to do. Second, there's a bond. And third, there is the oversight of Pink. And fourth, there is the city. I'm not sure that's the right order for all those things.
And
But
fifth, I think it's in their self-interest.
Right.
This is designed to
Right.
be a coherent,
Right.
mixed-use urban development. So,
Right.
so I agree with that. What about the issue of less closing of the streets? Did you all consider that at all?
We did not. The two streets were Bliss and Howard Street. And we did not consider that because it seemed to me and to us that is right at the heart of the proposal. It seems very difficult to figure out how you would do. The casino itself goes across Bliss Street. One thing that helps understand and really helped me understand some of this was to take that map that is part of slide, I think it's 33, that has the historic buildings superimposed on the plan. Let me see if we can get that, Melissa. That's probably what I did, right?
A little
And-
tiny one.
It was tiny, yeah, but that's the next one now, if we can get up the next one. Yeah. This was a slide I made all by myself, and this always happens when I make a slide.
Disappears?
Right, disappears.
Let's use it as
No, it's high secrecy, I guess it's, yeah. All right, we looked at it before, and it's the slide in which the historic buildings are superimposed over the diagram of the first floor. And walk around outside with that and see where these buildings and roads are, and see how the roads stack up.
For the record, I totally agree with that.
Right.
I mean, it didn't make sense to extend Bliss or Howard.
Right.
I mean, it would be a massive change. But what was interesting was this sort of generic observation about how well-intended big public open spaces frequently don't work. Look at Copley Square in Boston. It's been redone 5 times trying to
Right.
figure out how to make people use it.
Right.
And Boston City Hall is
Right.
another example. And
Right.
it's an interesting, I mean, I don't know how to do it, but I think it's an interesting issue, and having there be some attention to the risk, it's a great concept, but frequently these spaces don't get used. And whatever variables there are to enhance the likelihood, whatever the critical variables are that make foot traffic happen, anyway, it just seemed to me something worth thinking about, particularly because of the sensitivity to how sometimes these spaces fail.
Right. And I'm sure that they will think about that, and the only other thing that I can say about that, and I don't know if any of the team wants to comment on that, is that the open spaces that are planned here are all surrounded by retail and by food and beverage places. And so you have promenades but you have places where there's stuff to do. And
Right, it's true of Copley Square too, but anyway,
Yeah.
so it's a good point. The last thing was, and I think you do have a commission on this, at least in part, they talked about weather, four-season weather protection for a number of the pedestrian places, bus stops, and again, you know, as a Boston resident, you know, it might, I mean, I don't know how far you're gonna go on your condition, but I think it's really worth thinking about. You could have sponsored walkways, you know, you can get sponsors to put ads on walkways. You could probably keep the cost relatively modest, but it would make a huge difference if in clement weather, we're really mitigated in its impact on the usability and of these facilities.
well, one of the conditions does deal with the bus stops, and we'll get to that in just a second.
Okay, that's, I just throw that out sort of as a gratuitous thought. All right.
Okay,
Any
let's
other thoughts? You want to go to conditions then?
Commissioner Zuniga, did
Well,
you?
you actually, you know, you started to get to some of these through the cumulative nature of your or questions, Mr. Chairman, but I'm gonna save some of the comments until I'm done with the finance presentation, because some of the points about finance actually overlap from the opposite angle to some of the building and site design. But I'll only mention that, you know, some of the benefits that get accrued here represent a cost and a risk that, you know, we all know about. If there's a lot more integration and preservation, that means there's more materials and more coordination. So I took, I'm coming from the perspective of there's a lot more cost, if you will, in the way that this is being developed, and the benefits get accrued into the building and the overall environment. But I'm going to save that for later today or even tomorrow as we really begin the deliberations.
Okay.
I
I'm
had
sorry.
a couple of questions, just picking up again on the comments that AIA sent us, and there are two questions about
They would make a point of saying it was not AIA.
Right.
It was
Oh.
independent architects.
independent architects, right? A gathering of design professionals.
Right.
Yeah, that is an important distinction, because they do have a process that will result in an AIA thing. That actually couldn't put that together, so it's independent architects.
There are two references to the parking garage, which from, I believe if I recall, where MGM projects most of the traffic is coming from, the garage is going to be primarily one of the first things you see, probably in addition to the hotel tower. But they talk about a false facade, they even talk about a Disney effect. I'm sure their definition of Disney effect is different than mine, but I'm sure it all has to do with the outward appearance of the garage is kind of the first thing you see is you approach. Was there any concern out of the comments that this group of design professionals raised with respect to the garage that concerned you? Were you with the team?
Yes, and one of the conditions does deal with that.
Okay.
And so, I'm not sure it answers it fully, but we're going to propose a condition. Yeah.
Okay. The other quick question, and I too am also encouraged by the fact that the Historic Commission and MGM continue to work together on the issues around some of the historically significant properties on the footprint. Process-wise, and maybe somebody on the consulting team would know this, if the local Historic Commission is pleased with the results or pleased with the mitigation plans, is there any role that, any opportunity or scenario where the state can come in and kind of voice an opinion different than what the local Historic Commission has come up with?
And you're talking about more than voicing an opinion, you're talking about overriding it.
Right.
Rick?
Yes, that's possible, but unlikely. locals would generally have priority over there. They're closer to the situation.
Okay. Does it usually also involve a question of whether federal or state resources are being used that gives somebody a predominant hand?
It could.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So the answer, for those watching us, the answer to the question, I'm not sure they were able to hear you, is yes, the state does have the power, but it's unlikely. They usually defer to the locals, and it may turn on whether there's federal money involved, but
Anything else? Okay.
okay, the conditions now, and these are very brief, this won't take us much time. The first condition does have to do with bus shelters. And we would recommend a condition that let me begin. MGM's committed to upgrade the bus shelters along Main Street. And Commissioner Cameron is also going to talk about that. And we would recommend that the upgrades that they have committed to undertake be completed in a manner that the city and PVTA, Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, determine are consistent with the surroundings and quality of the proposed development. At first blush, this may look like something that's too trivial to bother with. You know, the next condition is going to be what kind of doorknobs do they want on the hotel. But this really is a talisman for a commitment to public transportation and an encouragement for public transportation. This is one of the things that the applicant has control over. And so an aluminum bench and a vinyl plexiglass roof is not something that energizes or helps to energize or helps to demonstrate a commitment to public transportation. And we think that it would be very helpful, both symbolically and actually, if these upgraded bus terminals, bus stations, had the look and feel of the energy that this project otherwise is going to present. That may be unnecessary to say, but and unnecessary to impose as a condition. But we thought that that would be helpful to add. The second condition has to do with the garage, Commissioner Stebbins. To carry out MGM's plan for mitigating garage massing, ensure that the completed garage is masonry clad and that the Union Street expression is of the kind, quality, and articulation shown for the Bliss Street facade at page 14 of attachment 40501 to your application. Basically, this is the Bliss Street facade. This is what you see when you're standing on State Street. You're looking through buildings that aren't depicted there. You're standing on State, you're looking toward Union, and that's what you see. Again, there's some buildings blocking that view, but that's what's there. And the thought was that on Union Street, which is here, that ought to be the same kind, quality, and articulation. Maybe it is. There is a document in the application with the elevations that has the various materials on it, but it's very hard to determine from that document what the lower end of Union Street actually is going to look like. So we thought this would be a condition that would be helpful to impose. It may be something that they're already planning to do, but that would...
Could I just ask for
Yeah.
clarification on that? I thought my memory of the Union Street side was these huge, maybe electronic murals or something, whereas the Bliss side is artificial facades of buildings.
No, the big, huge murals are on the East Columbus Street side.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. You're
Right,
Sorry.
right,
Got it.
right. And that is going to be...
Yeah, got it. I'm with
yeah,
you.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is Union Street and should mirror State Street, or Bliss Street. The third is, has to do with construction, and that this is also something that they have suggested, MGM has suggested it plans to do in a broad sense, but this is a little bit more particularized. The third condition is coordinate with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, the Trial Court of the Commonwealth, and other interested parties in plans designed to minimize noise and dust and disruption to parking and business operations during construction of MGM Springfield and the planned I-91 viaduct project. This is really important, and I think that all the parties realize it. It's particularly important because of the potential noise impact on courthouse operations. And trying to, and you know, that goes without saying that important, sometimes life-changing things are going on in that courthouse, and it's important for people to understand and hear what's going on in the courtroom as they make the decisions. And at the same time, there is a residential environment in the vicinity, and there is the viaduct project overlapping with this project for some considerable length. And some real hard thought is going to have to be given as to how to coordinate all these to minimize the impact on the courthouse, on the residential neighborhood, and also on the surrounding businesses. So I'm sure that thought is being given, but we think it ought to be a condition that it is. And finally, condition 4 has to do with the crossing. This one's a little bit more difficult because it's not clear to me what role MGM ought to have in this. But the condition says MGM should work with Amtrak and the city to determine the level of improvements necessary at the State Street Railroad crossing to safely control pedestrian and bike access across the street to Riverfront Park. That's on the State Street end. And it should work with MassDOT and the city to ensure the pedestrian and bike improvements are made to the I-91 underpasses at the end of State and Union Street before the casino is open. The improvement should be acceptable to all parties and enhance safe, convenient, and pleasant access to Riverfront Park. Now, MGM has made $1 million commitment to the upgrade of Riverfront Park. It may be that the right way is to use for this part of that money to do these things. But it's the participation at some level in seeing to the fact that a planning process is undertaken that we're proposing. We can talk about whether that makes sense or not, but that's what we're proposing. And I can't be more precise than that as to what role collectively we think MGM should play in it. Anything?
Did you brainstorm about ways to put meat on those bones? Were there ideas that were kicked around?
Yes, and the ideas led to an inconclusive result. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. MGM doesn't own these facilities. It doesn't own the streets. MGM's committed to some traffic upgrades. What more would be realistic to require them to do with respect to more than physical improvements? I'm not sure. But they are a major player in the development of that area, and it might be worthwhile to see if they can leverage on the power that they have as a consequence of that to bring other people together or to ask other people to get together. It may be that's going to happen organically. But it struck us as important for them to have a seat at the table and to act as at least as a catalyst for getting discussions going. Because the whole riverfront exercise, riverfront improvement exercise, doesn't go very far, it seems to us, unless the access points are dealt with in some sensible fashion. And they're not very sensible at the moment. They don't seem to us to be very sensible.
For a mere $14 billion, they could depress I-91 and the railroad track.
Right. I don't think that's a condition we had in mind.
Well, I agree, and I agree that it's complicated, that there's, you know, as we know from Boston, you know, the cost-benefit ratio of creating access to the water is a huge quality of life and economic and everything else benefit. How you do it, I don't know, but I certainly agree with that, with the encouragement, and it's, so I agree. But
Yeah, there's that, there's the fact that they've already committed $1 million to the upgrade. Is this part of that? There is the question, does it make sense to impose a condition that's precatory?
And they will be having the trolley.
They will be having the trolley?
On some kind of a routine basis.
Does it, yeah, so,
Much shorter than the big dig. And you alluded to this, Commissioner. I can think of a number of examples from my previous work in schools and looking at design, where the design could be really well intended, but if people might not end up using it, which is where this is rather tricky. And I can think of pedestrian bridges. They could sound great in theory. Well, the access is just by going over the rails. But a vast majority of people just don't use them. Trek up the steps and then, down the steps, even if the purpose is to walk around near the river. So what you suggest is, continue to be thinking about this is, I think, about as much as we can expect.
I would think, if MGM is making the contribution to the city, they want to make sure that their contribution to the project is well spent. So I would think they're going to have some level of involvement or engagement or want to be at the table regardless, or whether that's a condition or not. But to Commissioner Zuniga's point, the tower that they showed is rarely used, so finding a solution, I certainly think would benefit from their involvement at the table.
well, I can understand why the tower is rarely used, because I'm sure it's rarely found.
All right. Any other questions or conversation topics at this point?
I just had one. If under criterion 4, where you talk about sustainable development, in the first paragraph on your narrative on their scoring, slide 64. I think the statute has language about the 10% of their energy requirements coming from renewable energy. However, in the application, there weren't specific plans related to the renewables being developed on site. And I just didn't know if that was a issue of, I guess, continued due diligence that you would have our applicant do, or what your thoughts were on that question.
Well, I'm not sure where are you reading from, Commissioner? I see.
Just the last part of the first paragraph.
Yeah, they have, MGM has committed to reach that goal through a combination of photovoltaics and renewable energy credits. The photovoltaics have not been described in detail. And there's an estimate of the amount of energy, which I believe is half of that 10% from the photovoltaics, but not much detailed backup for that. The remainder is through purchase of renewable energy credits. These are credits that are sold by entities that are producing more power than they need, and they can sell renewable power, and they can sell them on. So one way or another, they're going to get they're committed to getting the 10%. They have to be committed to getting that, and that's one of our standard statutory conditions. How the balance between the photovoltaics and the RECs is going to be worked out isn't specified in the plans. That's what that was designed to talk about.
This was a great job, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Terrific.
Thank you. Thank you, and
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks to these consultants who've really been working very, very hard since the beginning and diligently on this.
Well done.
So thanks.
All All right, it is almost 1:45. I suggest that we take a 1-hour break and come back at 1:45. We will pick up with Mike. Right.